Hi everyone, this is Ekaterina and I'm currently in my 5th week of studies to become a counselor. In today's video I will be telling you about the different types of questions that the counselors can use during the counseling sessions. And in the second part of the video I would also like to tell you more about the type of assignments we have in this particular course. So in case that any of the viewers are interested to also become counselors sometime and are planning to start studying for the level 2 certificate, in case you want to know more about the type of homework this course has, I hope you'll find today's video interesting, as I'll be sharing my thoughts about the homework so far and a couple of assignments we've completed. So let's go back to the questions. And when I'm talking about the types of questions, there's actually only two. There's closed questions and open questions. Now, when it comes to closed questions, those are usually quite simple and they don't encourage the client to tell much apart from maybe answer by simple saying yes or no. These sort of questions usually start with words like have you, do you, did you, would you, could you. So, as an example, a counselor might ask, are you on any medication? Or, have you ever done counseling before? Both of those questions fall under the closed questions category because the client is really only expected to say yes or no. And for those who haven't done counseling before and now kind of alarmed, thinking, why we're being asked about medication? Well, truthfully, if you are starting counseling and you receive counseling through referral, usually the counselor will get a bit of a file with some notes, and they might already know that you may be taking, for example, antidepressants. Or if you approach somebody privately, it's very common for them to ask you this during the very first session, because in the end of the day, they really want to understand if maybe you're taking something in order to already help you handle your problems, if it's something that you actually rely on quite significantly. The counselors will also know how it is actually affecting maybe your mood sometimes. So if you ever get asked this question by a counselor, it's usually better to answer this honestly, because this will only help your interaction with that professional. So the closed questions are generally used in order to clarify some specific points in the conversation, and generally counselors will not use them too much because they're not really encouraging the client to speak too much. It's very short question-answer practice, and obviously you don't want to bombard the client with too many questions because they might feel a bit attacked and might actually not enjoy this interaction. And as I've mentioned already before, even though the counselor themselves might have encountered a very similar situation to what the client is dealing right now, or maybe they had other clients that again had very similar experiences, but in the end of the day, it's crucial that the counselor should not apply any sort of, past experience filters, their own emotions, their own opinions, and they need to really understand where you stand, how you're feeling, how did the client experience a particular event. So hence, those clarification questions, the closed questions, are quite helpful, especially at the beginning of the counseling sessions when the client is new and obviously we want to get to know them. It helps definitely the counselor to put that image together and fully understand what is the problem that the client is dealing with. So let's go to the open questions, and as the name speaks for itself, those questions open up the conversation. These sort of questions usually start with words like who, what, when, where, how, and we use them every single day without realizing that they're open questions. But let me give you another example. Let's say a client comes to the counselor and they say, I feel really sad, really depressed. That's a single statement that the counselor hears. Now, what they can do with the open questions is to ask, how long you've been feeling like this? Has anything happened to make you feel like this? How are you feeling today? So there's already a bit more happening. You see, the counselor is opening up the conversation. Similarly, if another person comes in and they say, my mother never listens to me. Again, we have just a single sentence and then they go quiet. Again, the counselor might ask how long they've been feeling this way. Has this affected their relationship with their mother? How does it feel when you're not listened to. If their mother was listening right now, what would be that one thing, the most important thing they would want them to hear? So I think open questions, again, they're really powerful in the hands of a skilled professional. And this is something obviously I'll be working on throughout my training, not just this year, but alongside the whole 4-year journey. And I must really say that I truly enjoy having my face-to-face sessions in the college, because during each class we have some practice sessions, and this time particularly we actually split into groups and we were asked to come up with as many closed and open questions for a single sentence examples from the clients. And truthfully, first of all, it was a lot of fun because we came up with also some silly questions, the ones that the counselor should never ask. For example, are you single? Would you like to grab a pint of beer after the session? Or shall I tell you what I think? So yeah, some of those questions were very fun. But going back to the serious topic, I also learned a little bit about myself, because I've realized that I'm a talker. Generally, if somebody asks me to tell a story, it will take me about half an hour just to get to the main point of the story. So for me, closed questions are usually open questions. If somebody asks me a question and they expect yes or no, I'll tell them yes or no, and I'll continue telling them the story. So in my mind, I would also expect other people to answer this way for closed questions. However, when we did the exercise, I kept putting my closed questions into the open question category, and one of the fellow students keeps saying, like, no, put it back, it's a closed question, you wouldn't answer this way. So I think it's a good insight as well, because I realized that, again, I may be applying a bit of a filter when I'm thinking about how other people would respond to my questions. And this is obviously something I'll have to work on in the future to make sure that, when you ask a closed question, you should more or less expect yes, no answer. When you ask an open question, this is where the story will flow. So as I said, really happy with the interaction happening in the class. Also, the amount of feedback I get from other students, and just people sharing their own personal experiences. One of the students said that there was one question that irritated them the most that their counselor was asking them. And that question was, how did that make you feel? Now, during my counseling, I've definitely been asked this before. And I think I've never seen any problem with this question, because I just thought that the counselor wanted me to maybe really not just kind of run over some facts, but really stop and think about how any particular thing really made me feel, what sort of emotion it brought within me. So I didn't see any problem with that. But the way that fellow student has explained it is the fact that sometimes when you're sharing something really, really sad, for example, your pet has died, and the counselor is then asking you, how did that make you feel? Some people might actually think, well, obviously I was sad. So they might actually think it's a bit of a stupid question. And again, it was really interesting to hear that viewpoint. And when she explained it to me, I actually thought, like, that makes sense. Like, from that position, I get it. So even though this is such a simple question, but maybe I should be careful with asking it too much. And one last thing I wanted to mention about the open questions is the fact that there is one special question that we've been asked to avoid as much as possible, and it's the why question. Now, this is something we use every single day in our usual conversations. Quite easily we can say, why did you do this? But during the counseling session, the client can be feeling quite vulnerable, they might be upset, and if they hear that same question, they might actually start to feel that they're challenged, that they're being judged, and also that they've done something wrong. And this definitely shuts down the conversation between the client and the counselor. And obviously this is something we want to avoid. So what we've been told during the class is to try to come to the same information or same answers using a different type of question. So for example, we'll say, what made you do this? So we're taking away the blame, any judgment, and we just want to know more about the situation, what the client felt at that moment, what thoughts they had at that moment, and obviously what happened afterwards. So I hope you enjoyed this section about the open-close questions. There's actually a very short 60-second video that I would like to also share with you. I'll add a link in the description of this video, and it also gives you a bit more information about the closed and open questions. And now let's talk about the assignments in this course, because I didn't want it to appear from all my videos that I'm just going to the college and having fun with other fellow students and doing all kind of interesting exercises. We do actually get homework, though it is completely manageable also with the full-time job I have, and so far it hasn't been too complex. As you imagine, from the 5th week of studies, we're not going too much into essay writing or anything like that. Nonetheless, we do have small tasks we need to complete every single week, and one of those is to keep a diary. So we've been asked to keep an A4 format booklet and complete about 1 page from both sides after each week's lesson. So we've now completed 5 of those sheets. And the things we have to write down is, what new things we learned in the class, how we're going to apply this in our life, how we've practiced any of the skills. Maybe if some topics that have been brought up in the class that we found quite difficult, or we've understood that we actually have some limits with specific counseling topics. So any sort of progression in the studies, any sort of improvement, all this needs to be captured in our diaries. And as you can imagine, some of those things can be quite sensitive. You might be sharing your past experiences and obviously how they're now affecting you in the lessons. So I was quite glad to hear that this document is not shared with external markers. So this is something that remains between me and our teacher only. So yes, the teacher does collect those diaries every so often to make sure that we actually are learning new things, we are progressing, we are applying skills outside the classroom, and at the same time just to make sure that we're all right, we're not emotionally also affected by the topics brought up in the classes, and that we are managing this. So this is one of the kind of first simple assignments that we get, and once every term we also are asked to create a summary of our diary. So this is where we actually write about 500 word small essay where we combine all the things we learned, all the things we discovered, and all the skills we're working on and how we already demonstrated them in the classroom. So again, it's a very small assignment, but sometimes writing 500 words is actually quite difficult, especially for a person like myself who likes to talk. So we already submitted one of those, and it will be coming every term. So we'll have a few more of those essays to write. And one more assignment that is coming up quite soon is a leaflet. So we will need to create a leaflet for another counsellor to explain to them the structure of the counseling sessions, the type of skills the counsellor needs to have, the type of questions they might use. So basically everything I've described in the last 4 videos, we'll need to put it nicely into a leaflet. So it's an A4 page from both sides, and obviously it needs to have nice pictures and just looks very presentable. So I'm sure there will be more assignments to come, and I'll share more information about those later. But nonetheless, again, I just wanted to explain a bit more about the additional studies I'm doing as we are going through this course. Before I finish today's video, I just wanted to mention that next week we have half term, which means holidays, and there won't be any class. However, nonetheless, I think I will be recording a video because it's about time that I start maybe sharing more of my personal story and explain what brought me into counseling. So I'd like to tell you about one event that happened to me in the past and how it made me realize that I need to really start to work on my mental well-being. And also, I would like to tell you why I've chosen a broken cup as an image for my channel. And I do promise that there is a great story behind it. So please continue following this channel. I'm very grateful for your attention and really curious to find out what you think about the content of my videos and whether there is any particular topics you would like me to cover. Please take good care of yourself, and I'll see you next week. Bye bye.